Creating engaged employees and keeping employees engaged is one of the most important things you can do at an organization, especially when you have the sort of job or the sort of role where it's easy to get burnt out. I've worked in IT, I've managed help desks, I've managed service desks. People don't call the help desk to say, hey, I just wanted to call and let you know that my computer is running great today. No one does that. No one calls and says, hey, I just wanted to let you know that you guys are doing a great job. I don't have a problem, just everything's working today, and I just wanted to let you know that everything's working. That's not why people call the help desk. Oftentimes when people call the help desk, something's broken. And most of the time when something's broken, you're frustrated. If your computer isn't running great, you're kind of frustrated because it's affecting your job. So the people in these positions can get run down very quickly because they're talking to people who are at some level of stress, frustration, embarrassment, being upset, almost every single time they pick up the phone. It's hard to stay engaged when you feel like every person is telling you that you're not doing your job correctly or you're not doing your job adequately. So that's where you as a leader, you as a manager come in, and you have to make sure that you are staying engaged with your employees so your employees know that even if it feels like the customers don't appreciate them. Spoiler alert, most of them do. There's only about 2 or 3% of the people who call into any service desk, any help desk, that actually don't appreciate what you're doing and are actually really upset. I can get into that in other videos, in other customer service lessons, but right now I'm just talking about employee engagement. 90% of the people who call in with computer help are still very nice, very understanding. Those 2 or 3% of users who are really out of control, the 5 or 10% that are just embarrassed and don't know where to vent that frustration, that ends up falling on those employees, and it can be really easy to get deflated. It's up to us as leaders, us as managers, to make sure that we are staying engaged with our employees, that we ourselves are being engaged employees, and taking care of our employees. One of the best things you can do is to consider the well-being of your employees. Bridget Hyacinth, who I follow on LinkedIn, who I've also subscribed to on YouTube, she gives some really great insights, really great quotes. A person who feels appreciated will always do more than what is expected. If you feel appreciated, then you're probably going to keep doing more than what's expected of you, whether or not you realize if you feel appreciated by your manager, by your leaders, by your organization, you're going to want to keep working there and you're going to enjoy what you do more. If you're a person who has trouble understanding people and you only think about people as assets, what you can get out of them, then think of that as you are tuning up that person. If you're not tuning up your engine, I'm not a mechanic, so I'm shooting this analogy out of left field. If you're not putting oil in that engine, if you're not keeping it tuned up, it's going to run worse over time. People are the same way. If you're not checking in, if you're not showing them you care, if you're not actively listening, if you're not taking care of them, they are going to burn out over time and they're going to be less effective over time. They're going to be less engaged over time. 2020 really highlighted the difference between bosses and leaders. It highlighted the difference between leaders and managers who considered the well-being of their employees and who knew how to use empathy and reach out to their employees and really understand what they were going through, and bosses who were more concerned about the bottom line, who let the stress of the situation get to them and didn't reach out to consider their employees. Every employee was going through a similar crisis. We don't often have the opportunity as leaders to know what every single employee is going through. Most of the time in my teams, I would have one person who's dealing with a relationship issue, one person who's dealing with an issue with their child, one person who, their car broke down and they're dealing with financial struggles. Parents are going through a relationship issue, or this person stressed about that, this person about that. In 2020, it was kind of ironically easy to know what everyone was going through. We are all stressed. We're all concerned. No one wants to get sick. No one wants to see their family members get sick. We're all worried about losing our jobs. Some of us did lose our jobs. Some of us had to go on unemployment. Some people were affected more than others, but all of us kind of ended up having pretty much the same thing that was a conduit for our stress. As a leader, we don't get those opportunities much to know, at least to a point, what every single employee is or what is starting to exacerbate every single employee's stress level. It's very important to lead with empathy and intellect. Empathy and intellect must be married together in order to care for your employees. In 2020, when everyone was dealing with a similar stress, you had some leaders they just didn't know how to handle this. They were dealing with their own stresses while trying to figure out how to deal with the numbers. You had leaders who were already human-centric that really didn't have as hard of a time flexing and understanding what people were going through. One of the most intelligent things you can do as a leader is to understand your strengths and your weaknesses. If that people-centric part of leadership is what drains you, you probably will stop doing it, or you'll start doing it less. And the less engaged your employees will be, the more turnover you will see, the less happy your employees will be, and they're not going to feel like you care about them. If that's a draining part for you, that doesn't mean that you're a failure as a leader. It just means that that's your weakness. Recognizing that weakness is what would make you a great leader. Recognizing that weakness and maybe realizing that you need to bring in another leader who maybe their weaknesses are your strengths. If you handed them that project, they're just not going to be good at it, and that's going to drain them. But if their strength is people leadership, now you can take your weakness and hand it off to them because that's their strength. Let them lead, and you can now lead together in tandem and have that people-centric person be able to take care of those employees and to lead with empathy. Delegate your weakness. If it's something that you're not able to do, then bring someone else in. Try to get someone else with your weakness as a strength so you can focus more on your strengths and the stuff that energize you. I love technology, but I'm passionate about people. If you're a leader who is passionate about technology and tolerate people, one of the best things you can do is to bring in someone as that counterpart in order to balance you out. And maybe you already have someone in your organization who has that as a strength that you can bring up into that leadership role. Maybe you can take an agent and make them into a mentor in order to help you out. Your employees will feel more appreciated the more engaged you are with them and the more you lead with empathy. Check in frequently with your employees. Listen, actively listen, especially if your employees are remote. Reach out through your chat, reach out through your group chat, reach out through your team chat. Hey, how are you doing? Good morning. How are things? Turn on your camera and listen to what they're saying so they can tell that you're listening to them. If you're going to turn on your camera and then look at the computer, look at other things, if you're going to type, if you're going to be like, you're hurting that relationship. Turn on your camera, focus on the camera, focus on the picture of that person on your camera and engage with your employee. Listen to what they're saying so they know that you actually care about them. Be understanding. Don't tell them what you're doing wrong. Be understanding, listen, and ask what you can do to help. Maybe you can't do anything to help, but ask what you can do to help. Because if your employee has no idea of how you can help, maybe they don't need you to help. Maybe they just need you to listen. This is a fundamental principle of working with people. Listen before you speak. Most of the time when I ask my employees who are going through something really rough, hey, is there anything I can do for you? They say, no, nothing you can do for me. I'm just, I'm happy that you understand and thank you for listening to me. Be considerate. Sometimes when people call in and they say, I'm really sick today, maybe the best course of action is not to punish them. Maybe it's like, hey, I hope you feel better. I hope everything's okay. Now, if it's obvious that they're abusing the process, yes, you need to follow up on that. It's a lot easier to follow up with employees who might be abusing a process if you've already built the relationship, if your employee already knows that you care about them. If I reach out to an employee who hasn't been to work for a few days and I say, hey man, how's it going? You've called in sick, I haven't seen you, I'm getting concerned about you. That's always going to be my first conversation. I will never jump to the, hey, you haven't been here in a few days, so I'm going to have to write you up and give you a written warning. I'm not going to jump to that point. Now, if I say you haven't been here in a while and they don't really have an excuse and I'm working through it with them and I'm trying, eventually I get to that point where I have to say, I'm sorry, man, I don't have a choice but to start giving you punishment for this. But that should never be the first thing you jump to. You should always strive for understanding first. Lead with empathy. Be considerate, be compassionate, show appreciation. It can be a word here or there to say, hey, that was a great job. Very rarely are those agents going to get appreciation from the end user. So they have to get it from you. A lot of times the end user will say, oh, thank you, you helped me so much. And they're doing that at the end of the call. But it only takes one bad call to destroy the last 5 or 6 positive calls because those bad callers really are the kryptonite for a help desk environment. It's important for you to recognize that our employees do need that appreciation. Take that time to say, I just want to let you guys know I really appreciate everything you're doing. I will sometimes use statistics and metrics to show them that, hey guys, look at what you did last month. This is amazing. I am so impressed that you are able to accomplish what you've been doing. And I mean it. I'm not saying it just to say it. I am blown away consistently by my employees. If your employees never impress you and you're always telling them what they could do to impress you, you're not going to have employees want to stay with you. Leave your employees in that place where you can be impressed by them. Sometimes when you're not able to reward with compensation, with benefit compensation, the best thing you can do is show appreciation, and that goes a long way. For me, that goes a long way. Don't be afraid to get transparent with employees when you can't give incentives. This is how the organization is. This is how the structure works. I'm not going to lie to an employee when they say, hey, is it possible for me to get a raise? If it's not possible, I will explain to them why. Here's how everything kind of works together, and this is why we're not at a place where we can give you a raise right now. Don't be afraid to get transparent when a raise isn't possible. If someone says, I need a raise, no, you're not getting a raise. What they hear is, I don't appreciate you. You're not good enough. Maybe what you meant is, we're just not at a place where we can give you a raise right now. Well, I need a raise or I'm quitting. If you're transparent, you're also going to avoid those threats. Because if I say, this is how the structure works and this is what I can do and this is what I have to wait for in order to put that in for you, then your employee knows what to expect. But then you also have to follow through on that. If you tell someone, well, I think you deserve a raise, and you truly don't, you've just undermined everything. If you tell someone, I'm going to work on getting you a raise, and you don't, then you've undermined that. But if you tell them, hey, this is how the structure works, we're not going to be able to get you a raise right now. This is what I'm going to do to hopefully, set this up, and we can chat about this next month, and maybe we'll be in a better place. If at that point the employee says, well, I need a raise or I'm quitting, then there's nothing you can do. Okay, I've told you what I can do in my power. If you need to leave, then I'm going to miss you. I would hate to lose you as an employee. You're doing a really great job. But yeah, if that's something that's important to you, then by all means, please go somewhere who can offer you the compensation that you need. By doing that and by showing that appreciation and actually believing it, your employee will probably stay with you longer. People don't leave companies, they leave bosses. Care about your employees, show appreciation, be engaged with your employees, and they will be engaged with you. If you have an employee that leaves your company, connect with them on LinkedIn. Follow up with them. Write them a recommendation, especially if they're a good employee. I hate losing good employees. I worked at a place where I never had an employee more than 2 to 3 years. That was just the nature of the organization. So I had people leaving every 2 to 3 years. Every one of those people I was very excited for when they moved on. I hated losing them, but boy was I excited for them when they were able to move on to a bigger, better, brighter career. And I'm genuinely excited for them. Still connected with a lot of them on LinkedIn, and I honestly wish I could create a company and hire a lot of these people back and we could all work together again. I miss a lot of the employees that I have developed and worked with throughout the years. Let's say you have an employee that you poured into, that you led with empathy, that you appreciated. They moved on to something brighter and better, and now you are the one looking for a job. Now you have that connection. You have further networking opportunities. Caring for people is always going to get you further than not taking care of people and not leading with empathy.